This video will cover the System Manager setup. So the first thing that we're going to do in here is create a new payment term. So go to the payment term option, and these are the existing payment terms that we've already got set up. I'm going to click the new button on the toolbar. So in here we can put the brief code really for the payment term, which is net 40, 10% if paid in 7, so we see what it is, and then in here I can put more of a detailed description, which is 40 days from invoice date with 10% discount if paid within 7 days. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as net days from invoice date. The number of terms days is going to be 40. Okay, and I must also put a payment type in, so the default payment type that will be associated with this payment term. So if it was a credit card payment term, then obviously I'd just select the credit card option. Okay, so in percentage is going to be correct, so I'm going to put 10% in there, and the discountable days is going to be 7 days. Okay, so there's my payment term set up correctly. So save and close on that. Now the next thing I'm going to have to do before I can actually use this payment term is add it to a group. So if I go into payment term group, we've got business, consumer and default. Our business and consumer are the ones that are used on our customer templates really. So what we're going to do is going to amend the business group and add our new 40 with 10% discount into the group. So move it over to the right hand side and then save and close on that. Now I'm going to amend some of the customers that we've already set up to have this payment term on them. So if I hadn't have added it into the group there, I wouldn't be able to add it onto the customer. So if we're going to find customer, and we're going to do, I'll do my French one first. I'm going to do 3 customers all in all, I think. Go into setup, and in payment term, I'll now have my 40 days one. There it is, top of the shop. So if I save and close, update all the ship tos, yes please. Okay, I'm also going to do the toy customer UK. And US customer as well. So when we start putting transactions in the customer module a bit later on, we'll see that that payment term comes through as default onto the orders, etc. We're going to go back to the System Manager now, and we're going to create a new shipping method. So if I double click on shipping method, and you can already see the ones that we've got set up already, we're going to create a shipping method called order value amount. Okay, and the freight charge is going to be on order value amount. Warns me to say this will blank the grid out below basically, which is fine. And what we're going to do is we're going to say if the order is between 0 and £500, then we're going to charge £10 delivery, but if it's over £500, then they get free delivery basically. So we're going to do that. I'll save and close on that. Now we're going to create another new shipping method called weight shipping method. And in here we're going to have weight, and this time we're going to say that if it's between 0 and 10 kilograms in weight, then the delivery is going to be £10. If it's between 10 and 20 kilograms in weight, then it's going to be £20 delivery, and if it's over 20 kilograms, then it's going to be £30 delivery. So the more that the items weigh, then the more charge we're going to put on them for delivery basically. Now save and close out of that, and we're going to go into the shipping method group, and we've got a default one there, which is the one we want to amend, and we're going to add our new ones into there. So we've got order value amount and weight shipping method. So just move them across basically, and then save and close. Okay, next thing we're going to do is going to amend the US dollar currency to 1.95. So if I go into multi-currency here, I can just search on USD. Should bring it up for me because it'll be the only one it finds. And we're going to change this. It's currently 1.97. We're going to change it to 1.95. Okay, if I save that and then just go into the currency history, it actually tells me when it was changed, and so we can actually keep track of who's changing the currencies. Okay, next thing we're going to do is create a new source. Now a source is basically something you can put onto a customer or prospect or lead to say where they heard about us, see if our promotions are working. So we're going to create a new one called email promotion. Just add it into the list. We're also going to create a new department, which is called support. This again is things you can put onto the contact, really, just to put more information against the contact. While I was in there, I should have also deleted the department called transport. So if I can either click it and then delete from there, or I could right click it and delete it that way. I'm just going to delete it this way, so it warns me and asks me if I definitely want to do that. So I'll say yes, so that's gone. So next thing is we're going to create a new business title, which is here. This again is just something else you can put against a contact to have more information of knowing who exactly they are, who you're speaking to, if you're going to call them basically. Save and close, and then we're also going to put a job role in as well. So these job roles, once again, there's things you can put against the contacts if you want to. You don't have to use all these. And we're going to create one called support manager. Okay, simply add it into the list. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is create a user role. Now user roles basically can be used to restrict the menu options that people can see when they log into the system. So we're going to create a new user role for credit control. If I double click the user role option, at the moment we've only got administrator and basic in there. We're logged in as admin, so we'll obviously be logged in as administrator user role, so we'll have everything. If I click on the top for new user role, okay, and it's going to be credit control, and then we add on the modules that we want credit control to have access to basically. So the only one that we're going to add on there is the customer one. So if I highlight customer and click on the arrow to move it across to the other side, and what we're going to do with the customer is we want to disable all of the options apart from find customer and the credit control folder. So if I double click on the hyperlink for customer, it will basically open the customer menu up. And then what I need to do is disable everything and then enable a couple of options. And the quickest way to do that is at the top we've got options for hide all, show all, disable all, or enable all. Now we're going to actually leave them up to be visible on the menu, but just disabled. So I'm going to disable all, and that will put them all in grey basically. And then we want to enable find customer, so right click and say enable, and then if I go down and I want everything in the credit control folder to be available, so I'll enable that. So now we can see that everything else is disabled apart from those options. Okay, so then we can save and close out of that. Okay, and then that takes us back to the previous screen, and I want to save and close out of that to save our user role. So now if I refresh this screen, we'll see that we've got a credit control user role. Now, to be able to see what effect that user role is going to have, we now need to create a user account to use that user role. So the next thing is user accounts. You can see ones we've got already set up in there. And I'm going to click the new user account button on the toolbar. And the new user account is going to be called Credit Control. Okay, and I can fill in address details for the user and things like that if need be. I'm going to give it a password of Credit Control. And I'm going to give it a user role of Credit Control. Okay, so that's how we assign the user onto the user role basically. So if I save and close on my new user, it takes a little while to apply the changes. Okay, so if I refresh the list now, I'll see I've now got a Credit Control user. So to see the Credit Control menu, I'm going to log in as Credit Control, so I'm going to go sign out, sign back in, go. And there we can see I've only got the one module down here, and I can only get into Find Customer and into these options here, which is Show Find Customer. So that's what I'm limited to basically. If I try and use any of these shortcut buttons to create sales orders, quotes, invoices and things excuse me, things like that, then it won't let me in there. So it's basically locked it down, and I can go in and see age, debt and things like that. So there we can see I can only see what's actually on the menu. I can't click on any of these other things. Okay, so that's how we restrict people's access. So if I sign out of that and I want to go back in as admin, and what we're going to do is add an email account for the admin user, which is the one we're signed in as. So to do that, I'm going to go into user accounts, I'm going to double click on the admin user, okay, and then I'm going to click the email tab, and there's no email accounts in here at the moment, but we've got icons at the top for new email account, and if there was one already we can edit it in here as well. I'm going to click the new one. We can only do POP3 email accounts in Enterprise at the moment, so in here I can put some basic information, basically basic POP3 information. So I'll just put some fictitious information in here. We're not going to actually be connecting to anything to try and send this, so it's not too important what exactly we put in here. We've also got more settings option here as well, where we can put in if it requires an outgoing server, we can basically log on. So maybe we need also to provide logon details for our outgoing server as well. And in the advanced tab we can also say what ports it's going to be doing the send and receive on and things like that. Okay, so if I finish that, I've now got an email account showing in here. and if I go back to the general tab, my default email account is now showing as the admin user. So if I save and close on that, and then I can go and look at the email account, which I can do from this button in the top right hand corner of Enterprise. Go into mail, I've then got my inbox, outbox and the other folders basically. Just going to go and have a quick look at the system preferences, which is down in setup and system preference. Now basically we also send faxes via our email client. Now we use Interfax, which is why fax.tc is populated in this field, but basically if you use a sort of electronic fax provider, they will give you what this little extension needs to be here, and all that happens is we send a fax via the email client and it just sends it to fax number at fax.tc. That then goes to Interfax, they look at what fax number precedes the at fax.tc and they'll then fax it out using their bank of faxes out to Interfax. So basically all our faxing is handled within the Enterprise client, so it saves having a fax modem and tying up a phone line and everything else. Okay, next thing we're going to do is create a team. So on here under system user we've got team, and we've already got some teams predefined in there, but we're going to add a new one, so new team button, and our new team is going to be credit control. I'm also going to give it a team code rather than let it be generated by the system. Okay, now what I can then do is say who's going to be a member of the credit control team, and I only want the credit control user to be a member of that team. And what we can also do, if I just save that, we've got an email account here. If I click that button, it will then, I can then add an email account onto the team. So basically we have personal emails, email accounts, so when we're sending emails out of Enterprise, and also a team email that will come from credit control at company name. Okay, the very last thing that we're going to do is look at adding some custom fields onto our database. Now it's very, very important that you make sure that your date and time on your machine is set to the current date and time, because we set it back for previous exercises when we were doing some of the opening balance transactions. So it's very important that that's set to the current date, otherwise it could corrupt your database. Also, because when we're adding fields or anything like that in the data dictionary, you need to be quite careful because it's adding the fields into SQL. We would always recommend that you back up the database first. Now just to quickly show you how to back up a database, if we go into this SQL Studio Management tool here, which you should have installed on your machine, or you can download it for free from Microsoft anyway if you haven't got it installed, and we connect to the instance, and that's the instance that my dangerous database is in. So I'll connect through to that instance, and I'm going to double click on the databases, and that shows the databases. These ones with numbers in the cache databases, don't need to worry about them too much, I normally just leave them there. And then when I installed Enterprise, I installed just the Demo UK. It also installs the model, and we've got our dangerous database there as well. So if I right click on the database, under tasks I've got backup and restore. Now backup is the one that I want to do at the moment, so I'm going to go backup, and then in here it basically asks me for my options. So I'm going to back up the database. This is the file that it's going to back up to, so it's going to go into my SQL directory basically under backups, and it's going to create a dangerous.back file, which is the backup file it creates. I can change that if I want. I could remove that and add another one, or I'll do what I want with that really, but I'm happy with it going there. So in the options page here, if I click on options, the other quite important option is whether we append or overwrite the existing backup sets. If you append, it will put multiple backups into the same file, and when you restore, you then select which one you want to restore from. That's quite good, but if you keep appending all the time, that backup file is going to get very large, so it might be a good idea to append for a few days and then overwrite it maybe at the end of the week or something like that. My backup file shouldn't exist, but I'll overwrite it just in case there's an old one there with the same name. and just click OK. And basically down the bottom of this little window here, it shows the progress, and it'll show the percentage that it's actually got to. Okay, so my database is now backed up successfully. It tells me that on the screen. I can then close this down knowing I've got a backup of my database. Okay, so now that I've got my database backed up, I can now go and try and add my custom fields. So to do that, we're going to go into Data Dictionary. Okay, and we need to go into the System Tables folder, and we're going to add a custom field onto the customer table. So if I scroll down to customer, which is there, if I highlight it, it will show me in the right hand side all of the existing columns on there, so I can see them all. And what I do now is click Add Custom Field. That'll launch a little wizard where I can add my custom field on. So we're going to create one called Toy Type. It's just going to be an alphanumeric custom field. Okay, I can have things like drop down boxes and things in here which I can define in here. We can have is it a pull down list. We're just going to leave this as a normal alphanumeric field. So click next. It says bubble help, which if you hover over something it can give you help. But basically that's all the information we've got to put in. So if I finish on that and scroll down to the bottom, I'll then see that I've got toy type _C. Now the _C denotes that it's a custom field. So save and close on that. Okay, so that's now saved and closed, so I should now have my field on the data dictionary. What I will do though is just sign out and back in just to make sure that everything's updated correctly, because we have just added a field onto the database. So what I will now do is go back into System Manager, and we're going to try and add that custom field onto the customer form. So to do that, we're going to User Role, into the Administrator User Role, so that's the role we're going to add it onto, and we double click on the customer module to show the customer menu option. We then go into Find Customer, and that should bring up the customer screen. And this shows the various customized buttons here that we can customize the screen for the administrator user role. If I click on the little spanner icon, and I've got my toy type _C in there, I can then drag that onto the form like so. So that's showing on the form. So if I then close this little window, it says save changes, yes. Okay, so then I've got my field onto there. If I want to, I can also rename it. So if I just click the spanner icon again, and then click on there and say rename, I can then just change it to toy type, like so, and then close that again, and it'll ask me to save it, which I want to do. Okay, so then if I close that down and save and close the user role, save and close again, and then just once again I'm going to sign out and back in again. If I now go into Find Customer, I've now got my toy type custom field on there, and I can key something into there. I think the reason why it's still got _C on that is because I actually need to change it in the data dictionary. So if I just, as a very last thing, go back into the data dictionary and find my customer table and find my custom field and just highlight my custom field, it's the display label in here. I just need to take the _C off. If I save and close in there, and then go back to customer, find customer, open the customer. It's now got rid of the underscore C. So that concludes the system manager setup. So the next thing we'll be doing is a month end.